chapter number 2, and I will read verse 19, but we're going to, as a text, deal with, beginning with verse number 13, but I'll read 19. Jesus answered and said unto them, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. Church said amen. Amen. Let the Lord build it up. Let the Lord build it up. John, in the second chapter, introduces in chapter 1 us to Jesus Christ as the Word. He says, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. So John begins his gospel by establishing the fact that everything that exists was created, was made, was built, if you will, by God. And Jesus Christ, who is God in the flesh. Amen. John chapter 1 establishes that when we look at Genesis, and it says that, and God said, and as God said it, it came to pass, it came into being, that Jesus Christ was right there with God the Father. Amen. In the beginning. Amen. This is important. He lays the groundwork that Jesus Christ is God from the beginning. Well, when we get over to chapter 2, John then began chapter 2 with the first recorded miracle of Jesus at the wedding in Cana of Galilee. But then he transitions. Verse 11 says, this beginning of miracles did Jesus in Cana of Galilee and manifest forth his glory, and his disciples believed on him. Verse 12, after this he went down to Capernaum, he and his mother and his brethren and his disciples, and they continued there not many days. So they transitioned from Cana to Capernaum, which is in the north also. Cana is in Galilee in the north. Capernaum is in Galilee also in the north. But then verse 13, and the Jews' Passover was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. He went up to Jerusalem. Now Jerusalem is south of Galilee. Galilee is in the north. Jerusalem is in the south. But when it talks about he went up to Jerusalem, Jerusalem is situated on a mountain, on Mount Zion. And so it is important to understand that you always have to go up when you go into the house of the Lord. Amen. You ought to always be headed in a upward. Even if where you are at that moment isn't up, just knowing that you're headed to the house of the Lord. Amen. You're headed in an upward direction. Amen. Now when he gets to Jerusalem, look what he finds in the next verse. He found in the temple those that sold oxen and sheep and doves and the changers of money sitting. And when he had made a scourge of small cords, he drove them all out of the temple, and the sheep and the oxen, and poured out the changers' money, and overthrew the tables, and said unto them that sold doves, take these things hence, make not my Father's house an house of merchandise. And his disciples remembered that it was written, the zeal of thine house hath eaten me up. Jesus got to the temple, the house of God, if you will, the church. And there were things that were happening there that were not in accordance to the will of God. What was happening? Well, the oxen and the sheep and the doves and the money changers, if you go back to the book of Deuteronomy in the Old Testament, it was God who established the sacrificial system that Israel was to follow. So that when they had to bring a burnt offering or a peace offering or a sin offering, whatever the offering was that they had to bring, it was because God had ordained that they do so. The purpose of bringing the offering was to help the worshiper realize that they had already broken the law and that God allowed for the sacrifice of the animal as a substitute for the lawbreaker having to give of their own life for their transgression. So it was God who established that you must bring a bullock or a turtle dove or sheep, goat, whatever it was that had to be brought for the particular offering. That was God's doing. So God established it. Well, from a practical standpoint, God allowed his covenant people that if where they were, where they lived, if it was just too far, that it was not practical for them to drive the oxen from, let's say, Savannah. If you live in Savannah and you come to church down here, well then that's a long walk for you. But imagine having to get that oxen from Savannah to here. So God says, here's what you do. When you're in Savannah, go ahead and sell that oxen and get the money. And when you get to Jerusalem, there will be someone there that you can then purchase the oxen and then come and offer your offering.
Amen.
I don't know about you, but that makes sense to me. Don't y'all think that makes sense?
Amen.
So God, in establishing their sacrificial system, did not intend for it to be a burden. Now, all of the sacrificial system points in some manner to Jesus Christ, the coming of Christ, who is our ultimate sacrifice. So when they had to bring an offering of a bullock or the oxen for a burnt offering, it pictured Jesus Christ being our sacrifice, because that bullock had to be placed on the burnt altar and fully consumed. And so God establishes pictures, if you will, to help teach his covenant people ultimately what salvation would be all about. And it all points to Jesus Christ. So now that was God's purpose in establishing it, and God even applied practicality to it, that if you were so far away that it would be a hardship to have to bring a goat or the turtle dove, the pig, whatever it was, the bullock, that you could then sell it where you were, get the money, come to Jerusalem, and there would be someone there that you could then purchase the sacrifice and make your sacrifice unto the Lord.
Amen.
Well, what was the problem then? Well, the problem is men. Men got involved. And men decided, now these were supposed to be holy men, by the way. Let me clarify. These are holy men who are supposed to be in charge of the temple, because they were not allowed to bring a sacrifice that was in any way blemished.
All right.
They could not bring just anything. Y'all walking with me today, church? So they had to bring that which would be pleasing, the best that they had out of their herd. They were supposed to go out there and pick out the best bullock and bring in an offering to the God. The best sheep, the best goat. They were not to bring that which was blemished.
Yes, sir.
But here's what happened. People would take what they had, sell it, get the money, come to Jerusalem to worship. Get to Jerusalem, and some men had decided, you know what? We can get blemished bullocks 2 for $1. And then we can sell them for the regular $1 a piece. We clear 50%. So we're the ones who have to declare the animal to be acceptable, and therefore there was abuse. It had gotten to the point where it had become a racket. Yes, sir. That religious men who should have been guiding people to the proper worship of God had become corrupt in their practices. And it had gotten so bad that here, the first time that Jesus gets to Jerusalem, look what he does. He goes to the house of God and he begins to clean house because of the corruption. He even says in the words of the Lord, take these things hence, make not my Father's house a house of merchandise. Because God had already, in the Old Testament, in the book of Isaiah, God established that it was his intent that his house be a house of prayer for all people. That you ought to be able to come to church and pray to God. You ought to be able to come to church and worship God in spirit and in truth, and not have to deal with all of the foolishness. That was God's purpose. Well, by the time Jeremiah came along and prophesied, God gave Jeremiah to tell the people, look, I see what's going on. And y'all have made my house, which is a holy house, a house where people ought to come and get some help. You have made it a den of robbers. God wasn't happy about that. Because in 2 Chronicles, at the dedication of the temple, when Solomon was dedicating the temple, God told him in 2 Chronicles chapter 7, he says, now, I know my people. You know God knows us, y'all? Amen. God said, I know my people. And they're going to do wrong here and there. Yes, but here's the remedy. If my people, which are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven. I will forgive their sin, and I'll heal the land. That's what God said. Amen. But now listen to what God says also, that in chapter 7 of 2 Chronicles, if they won't heed God, but turn away from his statutes and commandments, and go and serve other gods and worship them. Listen to God. I will pull you up by the roots out of the land which I gave you. Yes, sir. And this house, talking about the temple that he allowed Solomon to build, he says, and this house which I have sanctified for my name will I cast out of my sight, and will make it a proverb and a byword among the nations. And this house, which shall be high, will be an astonishment to everyone that passed by, so that the one that passes by will say, why hath the Lord done thus unto this land and to this house? And it shall be answered, because they forsook the Lord God of their fathers, which brought them out of the land of Egypt, and laid hold unto other gods, and worshiped them, and served them. Therefore hath he brought all this evil upon them. The word of God. Things that were going on, Jesus said this is the way God had anticipated and expected for his house to flow. So then Jesus cleans house. Watch this. The next verse, verse 18. Then answered the Jews and said unto him, they questioning Jesus now, what sign showest thou unto us, seeing that thou doest these things? Now gave him the authority to come in and change everything that they had going on? Do you know God can change things the way he wants to, when he wants to, how he wants to, without your okay? They got a real cute way. They say, show us a sign. Watch this. I'm on my way home, Jerry. Jesus answered and said unto them, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I'll raise it up. That's a strange answer, y'all. I mean, does that really answer the question? It really does answer the question. But they ask the question to show us a sign as to why you have authority to do this. Jesus said, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I'll raise it up. Watch how they react. Then said the Jews, 46 years was this temple in building, and wilt thou rear it up in 3 days? So here's what they do. They default into the natural. And that's what folk do when they're not spiritual. They default to the natural. They think back to the days of when the temple was originally built. And when Solomon was building the temple, scholars, experts estimate that it was anywhere from 5 to 10 years for Solomon to complete the building of the temple. Well, not only did it take a long time, but it was labor intensive. When you go back and read 2 Chronicles also, it'll tell you that Solomon appointed out of Israel 70,000 to bear burdens. That means they had to carry the timber, they had to carry the stones, they had to do the labor that it took to build the temple. 70,000. Then there were 80,000 that were appointed to be cutters of stone. And then there were 3,600 supervisors on the job. Then the Bible says not only did he number Israel, but he also numbered the strangers that were among them and then put them to work too. And so there was an additional 70,000 that bear burden, 80,000 that cut stones, and 3,600 supervisors. So, all total, that was 140,000 that bear burden, 160,000 that cut stones, and another 7,200 who had to supervise their work. There's a lot of folk that had to go in and live in that temple, y'all. So they asked the question, let's say, well, now, hey, you know, that was the first temple. So in the back of their mind, first temple. But remember, that first temple was destroyed, right? Because they were disobedient to the Lord. Amen. And God allowed the Babylonians to come in, and in 586 BC, Nebuchadnezzar came through Jerusalem and destroyed the temple in Jerusalem and took the things that were dedicated to God back to Babylon with him. But God had made his people a promise. God said, now you're going to go into captivity, but 70 years is going to be the limit. And I'm going to open the door for y'all to come back. Y'all walking with me today, church? So now God says, I'm going to bring you back. And here's with the hope, church, that they've learned a lesson. You would think, after having had an independent nation that was flowing with milk and honey, how do you get to the point where it's like it is? Well, now we don't have to go too far. We can look at our own nation that has been blessed of God, that has been abundantly blessed of God. And we got to be careful, y'all, that we don't take the blessing of God for granted. And so here they were, 586 BC, taken captive. But God touches the heart of the Medo-Persian king Cyrus and allows the children of God, the covenant children, to be able to go back to rebuild the temple and the walls of Jerusalem. Well, it took, the scholars estimate, it took about when Ezra and Zerubbabel and Joshua the high priest, when they led those people back out of the captivity to Jerusalem, it took about 20 years for them to get the temple built. They started and stopped. They had opposition. There were people who didn't want to see them complete the task, but then they also had to deal with apathy. They had to make sure that they stayed in the way of God, that they wouldn't just get distracted and not do what God told them to do. So now, here it is. It's taken them about 20 years to rebuild that temple in Jerusalem. But wouldn't you know it? When you read through Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, and then into Malachi, you find that, particularly in Malachi, they've slid back to disobedience unto God. And so now the temple, even though it has been rebuilt, rededicated during the time of Ezra, by the time Malachi preaches, it's bad again. Malachi tells them, look, will a man rob God? Y'all robbing God. And you can't be blessed when you're trying to rob God. Y'all in with me, church? God said this to them point blank. He said, now, the stuff y'all are bringing, you wouldn't even offer that to the government. Government wouldn't even take that. But here I am, your God. He said, now, prove me. Bring what you're supposed to bring. Do what you're supposed to do. And see if I won't open up the windows of heaven. And I'll bless you. So much that you won't even have room to receive the blessing. That was God's purpose and intent for his people and his house. And yet, they had missed the mark. So now, they say to Jesus, background, first temple took 10 years to build. The next temple, when Ezra came along, took 20 years to build. And the current temple, that as Herod had been appointed the king by the Roman government of Judea, Herod has now undertaken to do some renovations to the temple. And they say, it's been 46 years. The first one was about 10. The second one was about 20. It's been 46 years. And it's still not finished. And look at all of the labor and manpower that it took for those buildings. And Jesus standing there telling them point blank, if y'all destroy this temple, 3 days, it'll be back up. Y'all here with me today, church? Now, anybody in their right mind? I say, now, even if he had the best cranes to lift the bricks, even if he had the sharpest tools to cut the bricks, even if he had all of the hydraulics that humanity has come upon to help in their building processes. You do know that it took a little while to build the Empire State Building, don't you? It took a little while to build the Sears Tower in Chicago. You know, it just takes a little while to build skyscrapers, right? And so now, but here's one man talk about the temple, and in 3 days, if it's destroyed, he can build it up again in 3 days. Clearly, they missed the point. The point is not the physical temple. Because the temple that Solomon built was a representation of the fact that the glory of God was present among his people. And yet, the temple itself could not contain the God of the universe. The temple, when you come here, it ought to remind you of the greatness of the God that you serve. They're scratching their head trying to figure out how one man gone in 3 days. Not just, even if he had a whole lot of people that help him, 3 days still not enough. You know, he got to get his building permit. Amen. But they don't realize he's the building inspector. He's the architect. He's the general contractor. Y'all ought to wake up in here, church. Jesus don't need a building permit from downtown City Hall. He declared, destroy this temple, and in 3 days, I will raise it up. Now, that was problematic in itself. Now, if we understand and accept the fact that he's talking about his crucifixion, destroy the temple of his body. That is what he has in view. But then he says, and I will raise it up. We got a problem, y'all. How will he do this? John gave us the answer in chapter 1. That's why I read chapter 1. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. Jesus Christ is God in the flesh. And so when we know that God the Father will raise him up, but because he and the Father are one, he can declare, if you tear this building down, if you destroy this temple, his physical body, in 3 days, it'll be built up again. And when he builds it up, can't nobody tear it down. Are y'all in here with me today, church? The enemy has sought to destroy something in your life. Amen. Turn it over to Jesus and let Jesus build it up. Because the same way he was crucified on the cross for your sin and mine, the same way they laid him in a borrowed tomb, the same way on the third day he got up out the grave with all power in his hand. He declared, I've got all power. I got saving power. I got delivering power. I got healing power. I got power to bless you like can't nobody bless you. Whatever the enemy has sought to destroy in your life, let Jesus build it up. Won't he do it? There ought to be some folk that testify that the enemy tried to tear you down. But here you are in church today. It proves that the Lord can build you up. Won't he do it? Can anybody testify? On my way home today, the Apostle Paul put it this way. If these old earthly houses of our tabernacle here be dissolved, y'all, these old physical buildings gonna be destroyed one day. Sickness gonna take somebody to the grave. Bad health gonna take somebody to the grave. But if you trust in Jesus, have our witness in here. If you trust in Jesus and build your life on things eternal, when this life is over, you got another home, eternal in the heaven, not made with the hands of men, but prepared by God Almighty. Let not your heart be troubled. Jesus said, you believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you.
I'm going to prepare a place for you. But if I go, I'm coming again. Are you looking? Are you ready for his return? God bless you. But let him build you up today. Wherever you feel down today, let the Lord lift you up. And when God builds you up, the strongest tornado, the strongest wind, the strongest will not blow you down. But you'll be like that tree planted by the water. Y'all remember Jimmy Houston? Jimmy Houston used to say, every leaning tree ain't the first one to fall. When you rooted in Jesus, when you let the Lord build you up, somebody say you might leave, but you sure won't fall. God bless you and keep you in my prayer.